Peace and blessings. This is Misal Bay, and we're here with another episode of the OG Den with historian Keenan Booker. And today we're going to be continuing our conversation about Catholicism, but in this connection, we're going to be talking about Catholicism and its connections to witchcraft. And Keenan Booker is the author of quite a few books. You can look his name up on Amazon. I have a description in the link of where you can find his material. He has the Kicked Out of Heaven's trilogy. He has a stack of new orders and a stack of new books. He has quite a few different selections. He focuses on medieval times, which kind of gave birth to the times that we're living into today. So he gives you like a good background into some of the things that we're dealing with in their medieval connections. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it up to Brother Keenan Booker. And, just to get into the video a bit more about Catholicism and its connections to witchcraft. Earlier, we discussed the science of Catholicism and how, specifically the science of saints, and how it's really beneficial to learn about those things. But today, let's talk about Catholicism and witchcraft. And what are your opinions on this topic, Brother Booker?
Well, the craft of the witch. There's a lot of stuff there. I'll tell you that. Poseidon, the anchor I have on the hat is one of Poseidon's symbols. Well, actually, it's really Triton's symbol, the sun.
Okay.
Poseidon's symbol is the pitchfork, And Poseidon is actually inside St. Nicholas for Christmas. Yes. And this is all blue. And Poseidon is the father of the Blue Devils, so on and so forth. So I wanted to give that shout out, Barbados,
Yeah.
Before we started. Catholicism and witchcraft is really a yin and yang situation. There really is, you can't have one without the other.
Gotcha.
Every true Catholic believes in witchcraft. And everybody in witchcraft, I can't say that they necessarily believe in Catholicism, but they do understand it, and the principalities are utilized on both sides. So, in the deep bowels of the Catholic hagiography, you will find many stories of saints who used witchcraft on the pagans and on peasants that were defiant of converting to the righteous ways. The righteous ways are, you got the catechisms, schisms, and all of the masses, different forms of prayers, and all of this towards certain saints and whatnot. We're really Catholic structure is based upon the stories and lives of the saints. Well, at least the way I go about it. Right? So when it comes to the witchcraft, there's a focus on the word witch, So you have witchcraft, and when you understand medieval, you got to flip it around. It's craft of the witch. And that time period would definitely be the focus of the Spanish Inquisition. Okay. And why would it be the Spanish Inquisition? It's because the local, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
I don't know what just happened, bro. Okay, there it is. The local municipality didn't have, and everybody was raised, and you have to understand that the culture of medieval times had Catholicism embedded inside of it, whether they liked it or not. And that was one reason why you see so many births of different groups like the Protestants, the Presbyterians, and whatnot that stemmed out of it, because it was enforced in such a way, so it's very strict. It's a very strict system when you want to talk about the medieval. Now, these times, they're trying to give an alleviation to a lot of things that are very damned, and shall I say. And for instance, we just had the situation of a civil union, as the Pope so-called gave that to the same-sex couples. That's how they. Now you have to understand, civil means to be civil. That means no sexual activity. So people aren't even really understanding the terminology of what's going on here. That's another deep line in between Catholicism and witchcraft, is a lot of the terminology that's being used. So there's a double entendre, because everything has to be double in order to be correct, because there is male and female. Okay? So when you're talking about the birth of witchcraft, it was really the focus of, there's a lot of layers. And I mean, there's a lot of layers. So, and I know we want to reach on the magic side of things. So for instance, in the chambers and the Spanish Inquisition, you had hens painted on doors, cats painted on different doors. Different tools were used inside the torture chambers of the church versus the torture chambers of the city. And also the witch hunters, as there were no witch hunters. Usually, when it came to the Inquisition, a lot of situations were brought to them, and then they would go investigate. And through the torture chamber, which is also called the question, a lot of people would give up people that they said were at the Sabbath with them. Yeah, which sometimes were people in their locale, their city, and then sometimes it stemmed out to their neighboring city. Sometimes thousands of people could end up, because what would happen is the people that were told on, basically, to be at attendance at the Sabbath were tortured as well. And when they were tortured, they gave up more. So in the end, it was up to thousands of people sometimes that can end up at the Inquisition to get burned.
Wow.
You know, and
why do you think that, listening to this, could definitely catch a visual from what was happening at that time. Why do you think people were so pursuant in their beliefs, even in the face of death? Because in one circumstance, in earlier periods, we had Christians being thrown into the lion's den. But just from your understanding, why were people committed to witchcraft in view that, was it some sort of force that they were using to fight against the hierarchy at the time?
Well, that did come into place, like the situation with Henry VIII. And there are multiple stories of kings having to be attacked by witches, and witches being taken to the stake for a said act. There's a situation with King Henry VIII, I think is one that is specific, where, and there's also one with King James, as a matter of fact. King James, who wrote the Demonology. I think I got that book right around here. Yeah. King James, who wrote Demonology. And he also directed the Bible. He was attacked by witches, and it was said that some Tempestari witches threw a bag full of cats over a mountain in the ocean, and it created a great hurricane that almost broke his ship in two. And that is why he wrote the Demonology, which was supposed to be basically, like I said, everything is double. This is to be like a part two to the Malleus Maleficarum. Right, and this is supposed to be the literature that carried that a lot of witch hunters used, and supposedly some inquisitors used. Now, when it comes down to Spanish Inquisition and the development of witchcraft that is really found inside the realm of the demonologists. And because of all the things that I've experienced and what I studied in volume 2, I didn't really go into the demonologists inside the Spanish Inquisition, but I do have a lot of their information. And then their information is far more detailed than what is encountered in the Goetia volume 2. So, right, because there's a hierarchy system when it comes to the devils and the demons, okay? And how they communicate and what they represent, which in reality is all the elements that we understand in our communication. So you have a lot of family unisons in your communication structure that are basically, this is like analog matrix type of stuff that's going on here. Gotcha. So it's a lot of people hear me use the word dumbass a lot, right? But you got a dumbass and you also got a smart ass, right? And then you got a, right? True. And you got a fat ass, right? And then you got an asshole, right? You see all of this? Yeah. No, I'm talking about these characters that are classified for stereotypes or to be used as a derogatory term, and you want to call somebody, you know, stop being a jackass, stop being a dumbass, stop being a, no, you want to be a smart ass right now. You know, see all these words. See, they're all, their last name is ass, so this is an ass family that's going on. Right now, you see what just happened? I just peeled the whole shit off of there. Yeah. You saw that in your psyche? Yeah. Right. So what happens is this is an ass family. Now the ass family operates together, and how the ass family operates together in their curricular development, it designs the power structure that's inside that word. But then they are all related. So when the relation of the ass really goes back to the donkey, and the donkey is the representation of Jesus, as Jesus rode donkey on the Good Friday. You can't use a donkey inside the witchcraft realm, you know, just like you'll find salt on the table, you know, right at the Sabbath, you know. The Sabbath is a real situation. The Black Mass and the Sabbath are two elements of the same coin, once again. The Black Mass is just a more theological style situation versus the Sabbath, which is extremely chaotic and is an advanced term to the Bacchanalia. And Bach was a musician at that time. Right, so when we go into the Bacchanalia, go into that realm, that's deeper in Greece, you know. And, it stems over time, but it changes names, and sometimes it changes caricature type due to whatever influence comes through astrology at that time. So, the development of witchcraft, when you want to get down to the nitty gritty of using frogs and using cow hearts and using deer hearts and using, you know, baby blood and things of that nature. These things are a draft over from medical. We must understand that. That in the ancient times, medicine and magic had no divided line. So a lot of the things that we talk about, you know, of using frogs, which is that's a common thing, or animal parts overall, you know. In voodoo, you use chickens, you know, things of that nature, cutting goat throats and things of all of that. All of these things are also correlated to medical practices. So when you go deeper in time, these medical practices converted into an evil space of witchcraft in order to blind us from its true utilization and the possibility of healing said scenarios or not, which we don't really know. Hence, there's been such a long period of time in between when we had an understanding of using magic principles for medicine. You know, that would have been like your great grandma, you know, your great great grandma, which they're gone now. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So we're stuck on pills and we don't understand the full principles, and we're not wholeheartedly attached to the earth to be intertwined with the elements for these principles to work on us if we wanted it to. So, you know, it's not really a thing to dibble and dabble with, you know. Anybody talking of witchcraft and Wicca today. Now, that is the physical, literal level, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's a psychological level, and there's also a sexual level of witchcraft now. And this also intertwines with a lot of secret things that are inside Catholicism that are buried, you know, under these stories of different saints and their activities with Jesus and so on and so forth. You know, and that's why witchcraft sort of turns up their nose at Catholicism or religious principles, because Catholicism and religious principles use, and you have to use,
Mm-hmm.
the principles of the ancient world in order to have control and dominate, and to also have attraction,
Mm-hmm.
you know, right? To have fame or glamour, you know, prestige. You know, these things come from the activities of the ancient world, you know. And now that they've been erased, only certain individuals uh, use these practices in order for their situation to control. See? So when it comes to the psychological level is what I was leaning on.
Mm-hmm.
The psychological level of witchcraft is basically the war, a gender war between man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line to it is that witchcraft is the power a woman has in order to inflict words or inflict behaviors in the environment that will dissemble you from having an erection. She will instill erectile dysfunction through extreme words and through extreme behavior inside the household. And that's the bottom line of what they're talking about on the psychological level.
Gotcha.
You know, right. So they put all the symbols of riding the broom and having the hat and
Mm-hmm.
all this other stuff. Yeah, they put all of that stuff in the way so you don't get down to the bottom line of what they're talking about. And the woman can just hide and play around and say, "Oh, I'm a witch," you know.
Mm-hmm.
No, what she's doing is she's breaking down the phallus, because if the phallus is erect and she really likes you, you're going to get the oxytocin out of the back of her vagina, and the oxytocin is a chemical that will automatically make her be in love.
Mm-hmm.
And she will automatically fall into submission space. And this automatic falling into submission space leaves her in a position of not having power. And that's why the phallic symbols and the canonical hat, whether the hat is crumpled over, Rumpelstiltskin. That's what Rumpelstiltskin means. It's a German word for crumpled skin on the dick. You know, crumpled dick
Mm-hmm.
skin. You know, so you got the crumpled hat, or you got the standing up hat. She owns the hat. She rides the broom. The broom is supposed to be utilized as a house utensil for cleaning, and she has went against that. So now she is a rebel. She is revolting against home order, which in the woman's mind, home order makes her feel as if she's a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right, but ironically, this is not the case for men who go out here and build bridges and build fucking skyscrapers and engines for cargo planes and cargo ships and submarines. We do all of this. We write 3-volume series. We do all of this, and plus we got to come home. We got to make sure we have an erection on abroad. We got to make sure we have food in the refrigerator and all the bills paid. But we don't feel like a slave. They feel like a slave when they wash dishes. You know. And because of this, she flies out the window, which is also revolting against using the house in the correct format of going through the front door. And coming through the chimney and leaving out of the chimney is all done in defiance of the order of the home, you see.
Yeah. So mostly witchcraft, I guess, in a sense of looking at cosmic law, was probably like a rebellious element against certain cosmic laws, would you say?
Say that again. Say about the cosmic laws again.
Witchcraft would be then a rebellion against, um, cosmic law, and so,
Um,
or would more like a bootleg version. Like I've been involved with those circles for a while, and what I've studied and practiced, what I've learned over the years is that basically you have like a tradition that has perpetrated itself through various either religions, mystical sciences, and things of that, which is pretty consistent with reflecting natural law. Then you have a subset of that, because sometimes the term witch is used loosely today. It could mean someone who just practices the occult arts, and they could be, in unison with how those arts should be practiced. But I think the true term of what witch boils down to is more than likely a person who may have used, I've heard this said by a Jewish scholar recently, was the scraps of off the table of different traditions to melt into something else. You understand what I'm saying? Like to kind of improvise and create something else, but it's not really like it's more fractoid than, let's say, like a whole teaching. So like the church will represent a whole teaching, right? But this would be something that's more fractoid, more, I guess, like you have the World Wide Web and you have the dark web. You know what I'm saying? Which is more fractoid, and it just opens the door to other spaces. Some good, it could be used, some not so good. You know what I'm saying? Which is, that's how I kind of like absorb it now when I look back upon it. Like in other forms of spirituality, you have to study, you have to adhere to a certain moral code, where as far as the craft is concerned, people may still bring those values with them, but really isn't any sort of like, how do you say, governing authority to impose certain codes on the practicing witch.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or the practicing,
Well,
or
I
like,
mean, the practicing witch, the things to become a witch, nobody is doing up today.
mm-hmm,
There's a couple of different rituals to become a real thorough witch, and they're not doing it. You know,
mm-hmm,
you know. There's some that are due to their level of psychosis,
mm-hmm,
and they're indirectly committing these activities, not knowing because they're insane, which
mm-hmm,
can also be the status of yesteryear
mm-hmm,
when this was occurring too. There's a high level of insanity that was definitely plausible during those times. And I've encountered it today, not um, directly, but I've seen it on films. I remember about a year ago or so, I posted a video,
mm-hmm.
and it was some girl in the street ranting and raving, talking about Jesus and talking about, this
Yeah.
and that and that. And oh, you remember that video? Yeah. I posted. So that was that type of psyche. I've seen other videos. The activity of the Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there's, some extreme cases. This is also a loss of the psyche
Mm-hmm.
and comparative to the witch mind frame. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And this witch mind frame develops from a high level of hysteria. Hysteria develops from the lack of sexual activity, which women fall into a space of feeling as if somebody owes them something at elder age because of supposedly they've raised children and they've done all of this, but a lot of them done it in the hag format. And one thing about the woman's existence is that if she's not pleasant, she gets nothing in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And women's minds aren't really designed to perceive the end. They're worried about the beginning, so
Mm-hmm.
right. She, that's just the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And with the elder age, if she wasn't loving enough to her children or loving enough to her grandchildren, so on and so forth, she gets carted into the nursing home, and then she feels as if she still owes something, and then the dementia and the hysteria
Start setting
all
in.
Right, and then this is where the cat lady develops. This is where the insanity develops. This is where all the breast cancer and all of these other negative things develop, all because she stopped giving in the love space, specifically sexually. You know,
Mm-hmm.
after the age of 30, 40 years old, she's felt the trauma of having a baby. She wants to be more fine-tuned on that decision making, and then she feels as if her fine-tunedness is going to come off of the hype of the male. And the
Mm-hmm.
male isn't going to be that hype after what he's experienced with women already. Right around the ages of the 30s come around. It's a paper. B, this stuff is going on. You understand? These are
Yeah.
bottom line principles, and it's all interwoven into the witchcraft. That's
Yeah.
what bewitched means, is to have erectile dysfunction where a woman cripples you. You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
it's also, now you have to understand that witchcraft has Catholicism on one side. So that's, when you say that, you're really talking about all the elements: undead, werewolfism, invisibility. You're talking about all of the baby blood. You're talking about all that stuff. So then you also have to understand that the sexual side of witchcraft has a flip side on the other side of the coin. That's called cuckoldry. You see what I'm saying? And cuckoldry is the baseline of Christianity. You
Mm-hmm.
see, right? So it all works in together. You see what I'm saying? Because
Yeah, that's deep.
yeah,
Yeah, the cockle and the baseline. We said the cocoa tree is the baseline of what? I'm sorry.
Christianity.
Christianity. Okay. Yeah, we have to definitely get into that in our next episode. Actually, that should probably be the title of the next episode, because that's some powerful words right there. You know what I'm saying? So
but
I gotta
but it
remember that
is.
one.
I
Yeah.
mean, everything from the story of Samson, Adam and Eve, and she possibly getting pregnant by the Ithyphallus, which is the chitterling snake, and then you got the other story where Gabriel had sex with Mary, and Joseph raised the child. That
That's
is,
true. Yeah, yeah.
and
We
that's
got.
the
Yeah, we have to make that. That's probably going to rain on the next episode. But before we conclude, because I want to give people this, what? Just give us a brief overview. We'll discuss it more as the weeks go by. Of some of the, what are some of the points that Kicked Out of Heaven, the series, touches upon in terms of witchcraft?
it touches on everything.
Mm.
Invisible magic, love magic, magic mirrors. You got the flight magic is in here. How
Mm-hmm.
to fly. Let me see where I go in this section. You got it right there. Flight magic.
Wow.
Oh, there was a lot of experiments right there. Yeah. Here it is, right here on this page. Flight magic.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, there's magic mirrors in here. Okay, those are the occult serial killer section right there.
Mm-hmm.
Up, there go the crystal balls, magic mirrors
Mm.
right there. This is this is what you call the wax man. Okay,
Okay.
so you know how they always said in voodoo dolls, you got the voodoo dolls, you stick the nails in them, which are
Mm.
drop down of fetishes from African tribal magic, but this is also found. The waxman usage that's exposed in this book is found in Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
an Ozark, which is a witch woman that definitely sounds like a Nordic word, So,
So you got a lot of, there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, when I went through the volumes, that was one thing I did know, is that there is how do you say this? Like, one of the cornerstones of the series is the discussions on witchcraft, and how things were practiced in medieval times, which is not, like you mentioned, like with Wicca and a lot of other traditions today that were established. They don't really, it's not a continuity, even though the word is the same, but there's no continuity in what's going on today and what's happening back then. So it is interesting to hear or even read a lot of information from that time, because, a lot of legends have come up. I think, when I first heard about the church, and a lot of people are of this opinion, persecuting witches, most times people thought it was just because they were healing people and that was outside of the jurisdiction of the church. But really, when you go into those things a little bit more deeper, you start seeing a lot of the things that were happening.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about that real quick before we close out, because
Yeah.
where the witches really started out with extortion.
Mm-hmm.
That was their game. Now when you want to go all the way back to it, the whole witch dynamic really stems from the Sibyls and the oracles, which is a higher rank of women that was in ancient Greece and Rome. The high heels, hence women wear high heels to be elevated uh, at a certain elevation in the mountains. Your air is restricted to your mind. You take some drugs and supposedly you talk to the gods. Okay, that's how that works. Okay, so the witches are the level that's in the medieval times, and they extorted. They would restrict the cows from giving milk. They would turn men into donkeys and cows. The story of the golden ass is the story of that inside ancient Greece is similar. Similar stories are the case in the medieval times.
Wow.
Basically, a man would be turned into a monkey. Turned into a donkey or a cow or a horse for workload, but they would maintain the intelligence of a human, not necessarily of the animal. And they would also be converted back. Sometimes witches would show up and say, "Yo, we're gonna mess up all your milk, mess up all your butter, mess up all your land, unless you give us this amount." And they would be on a monthly with that, And so it was an extortion type of situation. There is a level of the witchcraft area, which is a pseudosciesis, which is the word. And pseudosciesis is where a woman feels as if she thinks she's pregnant. She goes out and attacks another woman and rips the baby out of her stomach and tries to act as if that baby is hers. This is one level of dementia. There's another level of dementia called, I don't know what the dementia is called, but it does produce infanticide. Okay, and this infanticide scenario is also what you saw in the story of Hansel and Gretel, of cooking the kids or making the gingerbread man, which is a similar type of scenario, you see. Now, this comes from a social neglect from a lot of the women. The women were socially neglected. There was a lot of prostitution being enforced on them, a lot of workload. And usually, if we go to the volume 1, you see a lot of scenarios where certain cities wouldn't allow a woman to prostitute herself after the age of 30 and would make sure that she was married out to a vagabond. And they would pay for the marriage because after the age of 30, they're no longer beautiful and their city wanted to be represented by beauty. So a lot of these women would be shunned. And when they went off to the woods, they would go off to the woods mumbling 9 times out of 10 because of all the drugs, the lead in the wine, the lead cups, the alcoholism, and then you got the overt prostitution, okay, that was occurring. Now, this is going on by large percentage numbers. That's not all the women during the time periods, because, of course, you had your nobles and you had your royals, but then when you go deeper and deeper in the times, everybody got down to a certain extent, okay? And they started to clean it up during the 1600s, 1700s, during the course of them seeing the rest of the planet. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they would go out to the woods, and you'd be out in the woods rambling, and the witches' high-level rambles would, you'd hear okay, it's like this. I'm pushing a cart. There's a woman standing here, and she rambles at me, and I don't know what that was. I trip, fall, I break my leg. My cart rolls off, and then the fucking dogs attack the meat on my cart, and now all my fucking meat is gone, So now what am I do? A witch attacked me. You see? Now I have nothing, So now we go to the court. I tell the court, yo, this witch just busted my leg right here, made me spill my court. She set a spell at me. Boom. They go get the woman. They see what type of what she has, what she owns. They'll take everything she owns. Depending on the time period, they might have took everything that her family owns as well, and threw her family in the jail, threw her in the jail with the family. Maybe waited some years for the question, or they maybe just took her to the court took her to the stake right then. and had it in the market. You didn't know what type of, depending on the attitude that day, just like now, depending on the attitude of that day. So, those are how some situations would roll out. There was a lot of incoherency at the time. The illiteracy was very high. So there were a lot of people weren't reading and writing. There was a balance on existence of falsehood, exaggeration. Exaggeration for the human mind didn't really get battled and destroyed until the printing press. Exactly. Now we bring a clarity to a lot of things that are being said in the ancient world. It could be high level exaggeration, flying rugs and hanging gardens and shit. What are you talking about, bro? Even though we do have evidence of a lot of these things, we do have archaeological evidence of a lot of these things. So, who knows, bro?
Yeah, it's certainly a different time. And I think, we deal with a lot of electricity. So some things we may be tuned out of. Some things, like you said, is a high level of exaggeration. You know what I'm saying? So
there is a
I don't think it'll ever be discovered, but I do think that my personal opinion, there was some things that were going on that I think those things are still going on, but you just don't see them. And there's certain things put in place not to even speak on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you speak on certain things, you might find yourself in an ambulance. You know what I'm saying? It's the wrong people or whatever. Or, people have this thing where they shut it down. But also, too, because of like country lore and things of that nature, sometimes things are exaggerated beyond what they really are in a lot of cases, actually. So it's crazy.
Well, I'm gonna tell you the truth. The Sabbath is real. There is a dimension where all of this is very real. The witches from Scotland all the way down to Italy. Poland didn't have any witches, supposedly. But I think there was a couple burnings documented there. They didn't burn their witches. Supposedly, that's Poland has a little tootie with attitude, So, they were all saying the same thing, and they were 2,000-3,000 miles away from each other.
Yeah, that sounds like
about the activity that was going down at the Sabbath. Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
The Sabbath is a real place. The Sabbath does occur. And, it's a heinous sight, my friend. I will say that, but that is a dimension that all women are connected to. They do. There is law given, and that's what they operate by. When you really want to talk about it, the Sabbath is really like, I've built new philosophies, or new, not philosophies. I used the wrong word. I've built new theories. I guess I can't say philosophies as well. I built both with new information that's been brought. That does align very well with the witchcraft, and this is sort of how they destroyed the information and hid it. But the mind frame of the uterus is what you want to call the Sabbath, and that's why the Sabbath holds. Yeah, and that's what the Sabbath holds: male and female mind. That male and female mind is the goat, and it is the uteri. You understand? Which is represented as a witch, which is the dark side. The witch theologically is represented as Lilith, the mother of devils, who is the first woman mentioned.
Yeah, the one that wouldn't submit to Adam.
Yeah, the one that was mentioned before Eve. So, that is the scenario, and it's very real, brother. It's very real.
So we'll definitely
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to sum it up, but I'm looking forward to next week's discussion when we'll get into more about this cultry and Christianity and witchcraft from the Kicked Out of Heaven series. So
Yeah.
that would be well. But yeah, so we'll catch y'all shortly. We'll be back with another episode of the OG Den. We hope that you found this episode informative. I'm gonna put the links to our author pages for the Keenan Booker. Like I said, he has
Yeah.
the Kicked Out of Heaven series, so you definitely want to take advantage of that. And we'll be back again. Please leave your comments and questions in the comment section. This is
Now hold on, let me say the last part.
Go ahead.
They when you feel a headache and you got into an argument with a woman and she got you consistently thinking about some shit you can't get to work, then all of that headache zone, that's witchcraft. Dude. All of that gut wrenching that you feel when you done said something that you shouldn't have said, or she done made you feel on some guilt trip from what you done said, in your gut, all of that is witchcraft right there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the bottom line of that's one of the bottom lines. There's a couple of other zones that's going on with all of the symbology that I didn't break down here. But yeah, all that
That's deep stuff.
Yeah, all of that is in here. So you need to come and get it. Yeah.
Yeah, come get the books, and we're gonna respond to y'all shortly. Have a good
Kickedoutofheaven.com, KeenanBooker.com, StargatePublishing.com.
All right, we'll catch y'all later then. All right, peace.